Hey everybody, I'm Ryan Doyle, this is the Verdigris Table, and in this series we're doing Dungeon Master prep for an adventure, specifically the Sunless Citadel. Written by Bruce Cordell, the Sunless Citadel is a great Dungeons & Dragons adventure built to take characters from level 1 through to level 3. Now, I'm focused in on the version for 5th edition, 5e, that comes from this book, Tales from the Yawning Portal. I just did a quickish overview on this whole thing in the last video. I'll put up a link over here and down there in the description if you want to check it out. Spoiler alert, I think it's great, and I wish they would make more anthologies like this instead of cranking out, big-ass adventures. Speaking of spoilers, this series is intended for Dungeon Masters only, so if you are going to be a player in this adventure, skip this one. D&D is not the kind of game where getting a walkthrough is going to give you a better experience, okay? DMs only? Let's go. The Sunless Citadel was one of the first adventures for D&D 3rd edition, kind of a introduction to the whole thing. So I hesitate to call something from the year 2000 classic or old school because it makes me want to throw up. But let's just say that this has some different sensibilities than the things built specifically in the 5e era. And now that's not a euphemism for it's problematic, by the way. Other adventures in Yawning Portal certainly have their questionable elements for sure, and I bet if you looked hard enough, you could find something to take issue with here, hashtag not all goblins. But what I mean is that there are some elements that are going to feel pretty different as the Dungeon Master and as a player compared to other starter adventures like Lost Mine of Phandelver or Dragon of Icespire Peak. One of the first things the party is going to come across is a door that there's pretty much no way they're going to get open, at least at first. Then the first monster that they meet that isn't a rat or dead is going to be weeping pathetically in the corner. But I'm getting ahead of myself. There's a lot of concepts in this adventure, and a lot of them are good and some of them not so much, and we're going to try to learn from all of them. So let's start at the beginning. Let's start with the why. I really like the setup for this adventure, specifically the plot hooks. Like I said in the last video, I would skip the whole hearing a story in the Yawning Portal angle, but there are two really strong calls to adventure provided here that should keep our players pushing through to the end of the adventure. And that's important in something that's probably going to take several sessions to complete. Some groups do it in a couple sessions, and some groups clock in closer to 20. Now, personally, my group came in the middle there. Our game nights are maybe shorter than some people's, clocking in at maybe 3 hours max, and that's counting, chatting and catching up before we really dive into play. We're maybe 60-40 combat to RP, though that can fluctuate a lot. We won't touch the dice for like a couple sessions at a time, whatever. When I ran this, not counting, homebrew hijinks, overland travel encounters, which I loved, this was probably 5, maybe 6 sessions worth of material all told. So if your game group is anything like mine, even if you don't add anything to this, you're going to want to have a good answer ready when a month after you started this adventure, somebody at your table asks, why are we doing this again? And that's lesson number 1 here. The longer the adventure, the deeper we want to sink the hook. I just wrote a one-shot and I decided, things are weird, plus this guy is going to give you gold, was pretty much enough to get the players moving. They came to play a game after all. Players do need to bring their own buy-in, right? Go adventuring. But the longer and more complex things get, the more we should provide the players with a meaningful reason to not just go wander off and do something else in the middle of a campaign arc. So we get 2 really good hooks here, and we get one, so-so vanilla one. That so-so one is, you heard about this place, go explore it, get some treasure and experience points, right? And that's not bad motivation, honestly. I love a character who is down to go adventuring because they're a freaking adventurer. Players, please make more of those. But that is very generic, right? It can be applied to almost every adventure out there. But the other 2 have way more specificity and are definitely more interesting. Probably my favorite one of these is the rescue mission. A noblewoman has hired the party to go find her son and daughter, which is a common trope, right? Except these aren't just some wayward commoners who are in the wrong place at the wrong time. They were adventurers, just like our heroes. A fighter and a wizard, a brother-sister combo, went down into the Sunless Citadel with a rogue and a paladin who had a dope magic sword, by the way, another little hook in there. They went down there about a month ago, and now they're presumed dead or captured. I love this for a few reasons. First, it's kind of like a 4-in-1, 5-in-1 if you count the magic sword, right? The adventure leaves a trail of breadcrumbs about this ill-fated party for our heroes to uncover from the very jump out and down to the final reveal. It keeps reminding the players of the mission and drawing them further into this dungeon and the story. But the other thing it does is plant a big red flag in front of the players, a flashing danger sign. Here is a group just like yours, and it sure looks like they got. Heroes die down here. 5e is way less deadly than its predecessors, but death is a big factor in D&D still, and that sets it apart from other kinds of games. And that's especially true at these lower levels. And while I don't, advocate you trying to kill level 1 characters, especially with brand new players, it could very easily happen down here. And if we progress to the Forge of Fury and the rest of this book, after this adventure, I can almost guarantee player characters are going to die. So I like driving home the idea of the player character's mortality early and often. And this does a great job of that. And I would stress it to your players when you're running this. Hey, they kind of look like you, actually. Also worth noting is that our noblewoman and patron, Kerowyn Hucrele, is paying 125 gold to each character for each signet ring and 250 gold each if they bring the siblings back alive. That's a lot of money at level 1 or level 3, right? With 4 players in the party and a max success rate, right? Everyone comes back alive. That's 2,000 gold pieces. This also adds a sense of urgency to the whole thing, right? If they die before we get there, it's going to cost us 1,000 gold pieces. So let's hustle and, try to get them alive. Another clever detail in all of this is that the Dame Hucrele is also the proprietor of the town's general store. It is always good to stack functions with your NPCs. First of all, it gives you fewer people to keep track of and differentiate for your players, which can be super helpful. But more importantly, maybe, it will up the interaction and the significance of those NPCs. You want her to run a line of credit for these PCs so they can gear up and then, take it out of the back end. Go for it. The other hook here is a little more complex, which can be a mixed bag, but I think this is good. It's a pretty compelling story, if a little, fairy tale-esque, and it does get at the heart of what's really going on down in the Sunless Citadel. Every summer solstice, these goblins show up in town with a single magical bright red apple that has incredible healing properties. And this has been going on for over a decade. And the villagers are no dummies. They've tried to save seeds and grow their own magical healing apple trees. But once the trees reach about 2 feet tall, poof, they disappear. The villagers assume those sneaky goblins are coming in by night and stealing the plants to keep their monopoly, right, on the magic healing apples. For the right kind of character, the mysterious weirdness of these facts is going to be enough to get them going. Whether we lean into the idea that goblins are filthy, detestable dummies, or treat them as any other humanoids, the question is, what is going on exactly here? But there's another hook in the story that will not only get the PCs exploring, but keep them coming back again and again. They want that magic apple for reasons, right? Someone they know is cursed or diseased, dying, and they're trying to find the means to save them. Now that's a compelling reason why. We get the additional little gem in the rumors list that occasionally these goblins also show up in the middle of winter with a snow white apple, get it? Which is incredibly poisonous. And that adds a nice little poetic balance to our story here. And for the different kind of character, for the right kind of character, or maybe the wrong kind of character, this might be the strongest incentive to get down to the bottom of the Sunless Citadel. Using this cyclical apple element has the added benefit of incorporating the seasons into your game. That can help, lend gravitas and verisimilitude and other big literary words to your game, which I'm partial to, but it's also very practical to anchor your game in time. It's easy to concretely root your story's location, right? Map it out. But if you're not careful, the time element can get very wishy-washy, and you might look back with a bunch of levels and adventures behind you and realize it's been a couple weeks. especially if we're talking about an open table or a West Marches style game. But even in your more typical standard single group setup, tracking time is worth the effort. And in my experience, it's way easier and more relatable to say something like, yeah, that was in the middle of summer and now the leaves are changing colors, than to track 10 days on some fantasy calendar. So that's cool too. If you enjoy it, go for it. I particularly think having holidays is great world building stuff, but we just intuitively understand seasons, and it's the right level of focus. Okay, so those are the plot hooks. Don't underestimate how important they are to get started, and how happy you're going to be in a few sessions that you took the time to focus in on them in preparation, and give at least one to each player character. Maybe weave them into their backstories at character creation, hand them out at session 0, whatever. Also, feel free to cook up others and more if it makes sense for your table. Yay, plot hooks. The other thing we're going to prepare before we really dive into the adventure itself is our starting town. Now, we get the village of Oakhurst in the barest of details in this book. We get the mayor, right, in the town hall, village hall, our noblewoman quest giver at the general store. There's a clerk in a shrine, like a jail with a watch, blacksmith, and of course a tavern. And the most important information comes in the form of the rumor table, where we get little clues about, right, the twig blights and the druid and the dragon cult, all the backstory elements. Now, I think this place is actually boring by design. The designers don't want the party hanging out in Oakhurst. This is just like a launch pad. But if you run a very social game and your players can spend a whole session shopping, right, you might want to beef up this location. We actually do get a map of the village and a tiny bit more detail in the original adventure, as well as a map of like the nearby region. And I definitely don't think you need this. And beyond different art, which you can probably find online, honestly, picking up the 3rd edition module won't add that much that isn't already in this book, in the 5e version. But if you're like a completist, or maybe you want to compare and contrast so you can try your hand at converting other old modules, this is available on the DEM's Guild as a PDF. I'll put a link in the description if you want to pick it up. Again, I don't know if I advise you doing so. We get some advice on where to place the village in different settings. So in Forgotten Realms, you can have it be near Thunder Tree, and Mount Now caused the sunken citadel to sink. But the fact that Oakhurst is basically just a list of names actually makes it flexible enough that if you wanted to, you could just merge this into a different starting town and no one would be the wiser. You could easily just use Phandalin, right, or Seacomer, or your own location here. The only NPC that's specific to this story and not generic is Kerowyn Hucrele, so I would definitely keep her, but otherwise, go nuts or just enjoy the simplicity, right, of Oakhurst, and add details on the fly as you need them. Or here's a great idea, use your player characters, their backstories, to help flesh this place out and give them a reason to care. So that's our basic setup work and where I would start my prep. Focus in on those plot hooks, tie them into the characters, and get our starting town ready so we can go on this adventure. I'm going to cut this short, not that this was short exactly, but I'm going to put the backstory stuff and the more spoiler-filled prep in the next video, in this playlist, just in case there are still players among us. I see you. So up next, we're really going to go into it, my dungeon masters out there, and head into the Sunless Citadel. I will see you there. Until then, get out there, have fun, be kind to yourself, be kind to each other, and I'll see you next time. Bye.